Ladies and gentlemen of the Nightmares podcast, I've run into a bit of a conundrum as of recently, and kind of a moral question that never thought I'd ever actually ask myself this question, but
Hold on. Since when does fucking Zack have morals?
anyways, today I want to ask the question: how much gore is too much gore?
Counter question. What made you come up with this question?
So,
Because it ain't morality. Because as far as I know,
clearly it's not morality. So the last episode of Let's Play a Game I did way back when, before I went on my hiatus to, take care of other shit, was this game called Vestigial Princess. It's an indie game, and gameplay-wise, it's very meh. But what it does have is some of the best looking kills I've ever seen in my entire fucking life. Like, these things were just beautiful. The most realistic looking graphic kills in a video game I've ever seen, and I fucking loved it. And I made a joke when I was doing that episode. I was like, NetherRealm, you need to look at this game, because this is how you do fucking fatalities. And then ever since then, I started thinking to myself, I'm like, Mortal Kombat's fatalities have been kind of shit lately. Like, 11 had a few good ones. 10, I don't know, I just felt for the most part they were just lazy. And then, I don't know, I started thinking about a lot of, like, gory and graphic stuff, and I'm like, a lot of this over-the-top crap just sucks compared to the more realistic shit. So, I don't know, I wanted to open the question up. How much gore is just too much gore? When does it start to just not affect you, or just, I don't know, just lose its value? Because, now that I've seen what a realistic kill looks like, and it's so beautiful, artistic, and it's just magnificent, amazing. It just,
I'll kind of start with a point that I've made in previous podcasts and conversations, and this probably isn't leaning into the exact direction that you're hoping for the conversation, but because we're all filmmakers, we all know how stuff is made, so it's like no matter how far a kill or a gore scene goes, we know how it's made. Like, it is never going to affect us the same way that it could affect somebody who has nothing to do with the film industry whatsoever. Sure. So that's an asterisk that I feel like we kind of need to go in here.
I will kind of agree with you. When it comes to kills, I don't look at how they did it at first. I look at the kill itself.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things that I'm always going in for.
But there's still, the tone of the piece, the context around it. There's a lot, but in terms of just going too far, if I'm going this with the pretext of going too far. For me, going too far for gore in a movie isn't so much about the kill or the gore itself, but rather the context around it. Obviously, if you're watching Sesame Street and then all of a sudden Big Bird stabs Elmo, even if there's no blood, you're watching Sesame Street. That's going to be too far for Sesame Street. So that's kind of what too far for me is when you destroy your intention.
Go in and say, because you just made me think of, I think going too far is a personal thing, because Zach, even when you're talking about how Mortal Kombat 11 wasn't brutal enough or got cheesy, whatever, it's from my point of view, not being as big of a horror aficionado as you guys, some of those I think are gratuitous. And to go back really quick to why I'm even piping in the first place is I thought of when 3D things was a thing. One of my biggest pet peeves is when you have characters be like, look over there. It's I personally hate that shit. I think that's stupid. But it's a gimmick. And when I think of gratuitous gore and everything, I think of Hostel, which I do not consider a horror film series. I think it's just, hey, look what we can do. It's gross out film.
Yeah.
It's basically Saw without the psychological part.
So it kind of sounds like you're
that's
saying,
why I like Saw.
When you make everything gross, nothing's gross.
Yeah, and then also, but you guys have seen a lot more than I have, so you're more desensitized.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I think if you want to get inspiration for more creative kills, whatever, just watch Unsolved Mysteries and actual murders and just the descriptions. And it's
absolutely.
disturbing as fuck, and I think you have to be careful about how used people get to it. And that's kind of the problem I like to think with some of the culture today, especially America, where it's like, oh, bloody head, whatever. So when it happens in real life, for most people, be like, nah, whatever. I guess I'm lucky enough to be like, I know when I'm seeing something's fake in a film, but if I see like forensic files of a bloody body, that disturbs me much more than on film, because I know the context and it's real.
Yeah.
So I guess in a way, it's when you're watching film, if you're smart enough to separate film from reality, like hopefully many people are, but some aren't,
Yes.
then I guess my opinion is that it comes down to personal preference and what you're used to. So someone like any of you guys, Zach, whatever, you've seen so much shit and just mind-blowing stuff. When you see a hole in a head, you'd be like, yeah, whatever. But some people will be like, oh my God, they look away. It all depends on what you're used to, I think.
Yeah, one example of that I want to bring up, when I was showing my senior film to like a few people like in my class and whatnot, I remember I had this one scene where the lead character in my film, she's taking a blade and cutting her arm. And I had like, a good amount of blood come out, and it freaked this one girl the fuck out. And I'm just sitting here like, really? You've never seen somebody, cut their arm and just blood kind of gush out before? And that was just very like weird to me. I'm just like, that's such baby frolic to me. And she's just like, oh my God, and freaking the hell out. I'm like, wow.
It goes back to what they were talking about. It's very, very personal.
Yeah.
But I gotta really agree with Brandon on this. It's context, and it's also quality of art. In quality of a purpose. What's going on in the context of the story? And this kind of goes back to what I said about what is scary. Did you earn it? Did you earn what you're talking about? And is it important to the context of the story? Or are you just doing it for fucking just the sake of doing it? Think about Jaws, and everything else. Alice Kittner getting killed, a kid getting eaten by a shark. It's pretty fucking horrifying. And a mom trying to find her kid and going, yeah, he got eaten and everything else, and running up and down the beach trying to fucking find him. It's pretty horrifying when it comes to it. But it shows, it's literally what changes the entire movie and then leads into the third act. I mean, like,
and that's, of course, after the context built around of, you need to close the beaches. We're not going to close the beaches.
Correct.
It was a boat propeller.
And the mayor, saying, my kids were on that beach too, and then it leads into the actual shark hunt, and it wasn't, if it wasn't for that horrific event to snap everybody the fuck out of it, knowing there's a problem and we had to deal with it. That led into the most important part of the movie, which is actually hunting down the damn shark. So it needs to be earned, and I think that audiences, just like what you said, is if everything's gross, nothing's gross. And I think audiences are smarter than people give them credit for. And if you just fucking just beat them over the head with whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. In this context, we're talking about grossness. But if you beat the audience over the head with anything, they're just going to tune out. And and it's about quality of what you're saying and not being lazy and not relying.
That also reminds me of something that Shane Black said about screenwriting a few years ago. And he was basically saying how back in like the days when he wrote Lethal Weapon, script writing was basically, you have setup, payoff. Setup, payoff, setup, payoff. And it seems like now all people want from their screenplays is payoff, 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 payoff. So it's like, to relate that to horror, it's like, do you have a movie that's just like, all right, we just want to show kills, so we're just going to show kills? Because like going back to like Colin bringing up Hostel, if we put up against Hostel and Saw, those two series together, I'm going to bet that all four of us are going to vote Saw as the better franchise.
Absolutely.
Like, is there anybody that's here that's going to But why is that? Because Saw has the setups and then the payoffs, whereas Hostel is more like, all right, here's the kill, here's the kill, here's the kill. Saw has the mystery around it. Some movies handle that better, of course, but there's more to it than just the payoff.
And also, I think it's personal preference too. Basically, like we're saying, even when you mentioned like glam rock and things like that, when you mention that, like, oh, is it just a gimmick? That depends on how you define the band. Let's say Kiss. You can't hear their makeup, but I think one of the reasons they were popular was because of their look that you see when you see them live. And so just because you're a musician or a band, whatever, doesn't mean you're only defined by your music. That's when it kind of comes into performance art.
Yeah.
And that's why sometimes, like, for example, if you listen to a musical, it's not always as powerful as being there.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So
We've
I
had
think
that
it's
conversation many times.
Yeah, so it's I think it comes to personal preference and intention.
Yeah. I get that. You know what? And that's the funny thing is that question is a very nuanced question. And again though, some people might go, well, Saw is just torture porn, and you go, well, have you actually seen it? Have you actually sat there and watched it and know what's going on in the context of the story? Because Hostel and Saw, a lot of people would compare it to it.
And having watched the first Saw just the other night, it is nowhere near as kill and gore heavy as the reputation of its sequels.
It's very suspenseful.
Yeah.
And I would also say there's the difference between Paranormal Activity Part 4 and Cloverfield. To me, that's those are most people will go, oh, that's just shaky cam 5,000 found footage movies, and I'm like, they're entirely different. Quality of films.
Right.
So it really just comes down to personal preference. Because I sure as shit wouldn't put Kiss and Whitesnake in the same breath. Because Kiss is Kiss. There's a fucking town named after them. It's in Pennsylvania.
So next to Hershey's.
Yes, and then just 20 miles past Intercourse. Oh God. And Brandon gives up on his life once again. These
facts.
These aren't facts. Yes. But I think everyone's come up with a consensus. It really comes down to context, personal preference, and are you using it as a gimmick? Yeah. And I think that's the answer to your question. Zach. I don't know if that's the answer you wanted, but that's the answer you got.
I don't know. I just like realistic gore, I've found. But, I mean, I've always liked more realism with my gore, but I don't hate over-the-top gore, because I love that Nightmare on Elm Street kill with Johnny Depp. My favorite kill of the year when this movie came out was the one in Machete, where he grabs the guy's intestines, jumps out the fucking window, and uses it as a bungee cord to get 2 floors down. I was like, I don't know who came up with that, but that is fucking genius. It was so just hilarious and awesome. I'm like, oh my God, I love it.
Oh, that is super.
But it also looked good. I'm like, even though it was cheesy and it's bullshit, I'm like, hey, it looked great. Shit.
I think I'm gonna end it on this. For me, I think when you become a creator and you become a filmmaker specifically, you do lose something with your your position of disbelief or whatever the phrase is.
Suspension of disbelief.
Thank you.
Words, Mark.
Yes, I know. The public school. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, right.
I apologize to all the public school teachers out there. You are the real heroes. Anyway, it's like, no, fuck, they're not. Brandon's like, no. But that being said, I think you gain a lot, but you do give up that when you know how the shit's made, it does. Whether you realize it or not, it pulls you out of it. You can't see it the way that somebody, like that I work with that didn't want to watch a horror show because E.T. gave her anxiety. That is a true fucking story. I don't know how, but I guess there are people that exist like that out there.
There are people who are truly scared shitless of everything.
And they, you know what? But there's something to be said though about being able to go into a theater and be truly immersed in it, and then I suppose you look at it differently when you're a filmmaker. You're like, you can scream headroom at the screen, but I think that I think the biggest context, especially for us, is it's harder to get into it when you know how the shit is made. And there is something that you lose from there. But I do agree though with everybody that's been said when it comes to context. Did they earn it? Are you just using it as a gimmick and personal taste? It really comes down to that. So, Zach, final thoughts?
Squirrels.
Brandon and Colin?
You want to go first?
I was just going to say, I guess, to help calibrate my level of everything, too, I can't do haunted houses.
Really?
I seriously cannot do. I don't like people near me, and I can't do it. I know it's fake. I would much rather be able to watch a horror movie than go into a haunted house. I can't do them.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk after this.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's always fun finding somebody who can't do something in the horror field, like zombie. Like I know 3 people who, if the zombie apocalypse were to ever happen, they'd immediately kill themselves. Like they're that afraid of zombies. It's like, wow, really?
Yeah. Anyway.
That's amazing.
Brendan, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have any final thoughts in this one. I feel like I kind of touched on everything I wanted to touch on for this. Yeah, if you want to make something gory, go for it. Just make sure the non-gore scenes are good too.
Fair enough.
Give me a good story above all else.
I say make the damn thing look good. And real. Preferably real.
Damn.
Like bungee cord intestines. Very realistic.
I fucking love it.
That's fantastic.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Nightmares Podcast. If you would like to follow us on our social media platforms, we would be very appreciative. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Slasher at Midwest Horror Network. Thank you very much. And I think Brandon would like to say something. Would you like to say something, Brandon?
Yes. Are there any gore scenes or gory movies that went too far for you? If so, let us know in the comments.
Ooh, I love
Mark,
a good
take us
comments.
out.
I love a good comments challenge. And also too, if you are watching this on YouTube, if you could be so awesome to stab that like button, smash that subscribe, and click that little dingy bell to be notified every time we drop amazing content right here on MHN. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time on the Nightmares Podcast.